Have you ever snapped at someone you care about, then immediately wondered, why did I do that? Or maybe you sent a text you wish you couldn't take back, or responded to an email before you had a chance to think. If you've ever reacted first and regretted it later, this video is for you. Hello and welcome back to the universe, friends. Reacting in the heat of the moment can damage relationships, create unnecessary stress, and leave you wishing you had handled things differently. In this video, I'll explain why it happens, how to interrupt it, and one simple way to respond more calmly. Let's walk through this because there's a reason you feel this way. Let's talk about why we react before we think. Have you ever looked back on a conversation and thought, why did I say that? Or maybe you wish you had handled a situation differently. Most of us have. In moments like these, it's easy to think that we've lost control or that we're just bad at managing our emotions, but that's usually not what's happening. The truth is, your brain is designed to react quickly when it senses that something might be wrong. It's part of a built-in survival system that's been helping humans stay safe for thousands of years. When your brain detects a possible threat, whether it's physical danger or emotional stress, it prepares your body to respond. Sometimes that response is to fight. Sometimes it's to run away. Sometimes it's to shut down or to try to keep the peace. The important thing to remember is this: your nervous system is trying to protect you. The problem is that your nervous system doesn't only respond to physical danger, it can also react when something feels emotionally threatening. That might be receiving a critical email, getting into an argument with someone you love, or feeling judged or misunderstood. Even though these situations aren't physically dangerous, your body may react as if it needs to protect you. That's why you might say something you didn't mean, become defensive, or shut down before you've had time to think. When you're already stressed or emotionally overwhelmed, even small situations can feel much bigger than they really are. Your body reacts first, and your thinking catches up later. That doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're overly emotional. It means your nervous system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. The good news is that once you understand what's happening, you can learn to interrupt that automatic reaction before it takes over. And that's what we'll talk about next. And if you've been feeling emotionally overwhelmed lately, I recently made a video about what to do when those feelings first begin. But today, I want to focus on what happens when you're about to react and how to interrupt that reaction. So let's talk about what happens in those first few seconds. Once your nervous system shifts into protection mode, things happen very quickly. Your emotions become stronger, your thoughts become narrower, and instead of carefully thinking through the situation, your brain starts looking for the fastest way to protect you. That's why you might interrupt someone before they finish, or send a text you later wish you hadn't, or become defensive before you've had a chance to understand what the other person meant. Sometimes the reaction is the opposite. Instead of arguing, you go quiet, you withdraw, you shut down, or you say, I'm fine, when you're anything but fine. Those reactions can happen in just a few seconds, often before you've had time to think about what you really want to say. The good news is that you don't have to stay stuck in that automatic response. Even a brief pause can give your thinking brain time to catch up with your emotions, and that pause can completely change what happens next. So how do you create that pause when everything inside you wants to react immediately? Let's look at one simple technique that can help. I call it create a pause before you respond. By now, you might be thinking, that all makes sense, but how do I stop myself in the moment? The truth is, you probably can't stop the first emotion you feel, but you can create a pause before you act on it, and sometimes that's all you need. That pause doesn't have to be long. Even 30 to 90 seconds can make a difference. It gives your mind a chance to catch up with what your emotions are already feeling. The important thing isn't how you pause, it's that you do. For some people, that pause might mean taking two slow, deep breaths. For others, it might mean putting both feet on the floor, relaxing their shoulders, or simply counting to 5 before saying anything. If the situation allows, you might even say, "Give me a minute to think about that." There isn't one right way to pause. The goal isn't to make your emotions disappear. The goal is to interrupt the automatic reaction long enough to choose what happens next. When you create that small space between what you feel and what you do, you're much more likely to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting automatically. And that's where the real change begins. Once you've created that pause, the next question becomes, how do I decide what I actually want to do or say? Let's talk about that next. So let's talk about choosing the response you want to give. Once you've created that pause, you have something you didn't have a few moments ago, a choice. Instead of reacting automatically, you can decide how you want to respond. One way to do that is by asking yourself three simple questions. First, ask yourself, what actually happened? Not what you're afraid happened, not what you think the other person meant, just the facts. Sometimes our emotions fill in details that aren't really there. Taking a moment to separate the facts from our assumptions can completely change how we see the situation. Next, ask yourself, what kind of response will help this situation? When we're upset, our first reaction often feels satisfying in the moment, but it doesn't always move us toward the outcome we want. Before you speak, ask yourself, will what I'm about to say make the situation better or worse? That one question can help you respond with purpose instead of emotion. Finally, ask yourself, how do I want to show up right now? Do you want to be calm, respectful, honest, firm? You don't have to ignore your feelings, but you also don't have to let them decide your next move. Your emotions can inform your response without controlling it. Every pause gives you another opportunity to choose a response that reflects your values instead of just your emotions. And the more you practice that, the easier it becomes. Now that you've created a pause and decided how you want to respond, let's talk about what you can actually say. Knowing you want to respond calmly is one thing. Finding the right words in the moment is another. So let's talk about what to say instead of reacting. The good news is that you don't have to come up with the perfect response on the spot. Sometimes the best response is simply giving yourself a little more time. The exact words you choose will depend on the situation, but they all have one purpose, and that is to give you enough time to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting emotionally. For example, you could say, I'd like a minute to think about that before I respond. You see, it's respectful, honest, and gives you space to think before you speak. Or if your emotions are running high, you might say, I want to continue this conversation, but I need a few minutes to gather my thoughts. That lets the other person know you're not walking away from the conversation. You're simply choosing to have it when you're better able to listen and respond. And if someone catches you off guard with a question or request, try saying, I'm not ready to answer right now. Can I get back to you? The more you practice these small pauses, the more natural they become. Over time, you'll probably notice something important. You won't stop having emotional reactions, but you'll become better at deciding what happens next. Before we finish, here's a question I'd like you to reflect on. How do I want to show up the next time my emotions are running high? Learning to pause before you react doesn't mean ignoring your emotions. Your emotions matter. They often tell you that something needs your attention, but they don't have to make every decision for you. The next time you feel yourself reacting, don't focus on saying the perfect thing. Just focus on creating one small pause, because sometimes one small pause is all it takes to change the direction of a conversation and maybe even your day. And if this space helps you feel understood, you can stay here. Until next time, keep growing gently. Take care, friends. You've got this, and I'll see you back in the universe soon.